On this episode of Geezer Motors, we review GM's prototype for the C8 Corvette. What could go wrong?
Welcome back, everybody. It's time to install the 355 that I have built into the 91 Silverado that I have purchased. It's been going on 2 years since I've started this. It started as an itch to build a motor, and I bought a block, bare block, nothing, no accessories, nothing whatsoever, just a nondescript 1973 vintage 2-bolt main Chevy. That has led me to the engine build process, and now we're here for installing that, making it a usable device. So it's going in a 91 Silverado, as I mentioned. I have got the engine in the truck, as you saw in that cheeky little intro, and I hold nothing back. I really think the C8's a piece of crap, but that's my opinion. Then we're going to pull the 4.3 out of this Chevy, and its last mission in life is going to be towing another Chevy, which seems appropriate. I think Chevy's only purpose in life is to keep towing their brothers and sisters around. But anyway, we're going to pull the 4.3 out, put the 355 in it, and see where that leads. What do I expect to be the challenges with this? Well, outside of only doing one complete motor swap in my entire life, and that was probably 20 years ago. And oddly enough, or ironically enough, it was in another OBS Chevy. I have not done this. I don't have a lot of experience with it. So we're going to pull the 4.3 out. What I know I need to do as far as getting the truck ready to accept a small block is motor mounts. I don't know exactly which motor mount I need. I know which one I think goes onto the frame side, but I'm not sure the bracket that goes on the engine, whether it's clamshell, whether it's the rubber isolator type, I don't know. So once I get that in place, I guess I'll figure that out. I know I need to adjust or redo the fuel system to go from TBI to through a regulator for a carburetor to bring the pressure down. I already have that. That's going to be fairly straightforward. Just 2 pipes, a return and a feed. Need to convert those over to some Earl's fittings or something like that to get them over to the carburetor. Wiring wise, I think there are only 2 wires that you actually need to change over to go from a TBI system to a carburetor with a at least with a HEI distributor. And that is, I need to find a 12 volt constant source, or sorry, ignition switch source, which I think I can get from the throttle position sensor on the TBI unit. And that goes to the battery lead of the distributor. And I think I need to wire the tach lead from the distributor into the fuel pump relay trigger, which is a purple wire there in the harness. And that way the fuel pump will kick on once it senses a tach signal, the engine spinning over, it'll start sending fuel. So those are the only things you really need to do to get a motor to fire. Not worried about that at all. That's pretty straightforward. But what I am worried about is keeping myself in check. You know, I had these grand designs. I'm going to get this damn thing done in a weekend. Well, a vacationed weekend. I booked ended with some days off, but basically 5 days is what I have to do some of this. And while that's perfectly reasonable, I think, to do an engine swap, when you're doing it by yourself, you add 1 or 2 days no matter what. And I'm not going to be completely by myself. I'm going to have people helping me, especially hope my brother shows up to give me a hand with a lot of this. But I don't think I'm going to even try to get the new motor in on this weekend right now. I've got to keep myself in check, slowed down, make sure I do things right, and not get go-itis and throw things that should be done right now off to the side at the expense of getting the expediency of getting the motor running. I don't need the truck. I haven't. It's a fun thing. It's a toy. So when I have the motor out, the 4.3 comes out, I'm going to take the opportunity to clean up the entire engine bay. I'm gonna get a massive degrease, scrub down any rust that I find, do a rust conversion paint and sealer primer, and I'm gonna paint the firewall black. Right now it's the factory body color, which is white. I know what pretty dang sure I'm gonna paint this truck, and it's gonna be a nice surprise when the time comes. I think you guys will really enjoy the way that the color I picked. But I'm gonna go ahead and paint the firewall black for now because that's generic enough and it'll go with any color I choose. But it has to be done now. I need to get the firewall cleaned up. I need to pull the relay station off. I need to get the plumbing and wiring off of it. I need to tape up the brake booster and yada, 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 and do that. while I have a clean engine bay to work in. That way, 2, 3, 5, 6 months from now, when I'm like, hey, I'm ready to paint, damn, I really wish I had painted that firewall when I had the damn thing clean. Gonna do that now, save the headache later. Then over the course of the next couple weekends, I'll worry about getting the motor in place. Plus, and I'm going long-winded on this intro too, but I want this to be as educational as possible for anybody else that watches this video, because what I have seen from the videos I have watched are a lot of just backyard, guys with a camera kind of I don't want to call it, let's call it what it is. It's the hillbilly YouTube videos of I did this to the old Yeller, and that's not the way I want to go with this. All the things that I could not figure out from threads, posts, forums, videos, I want to try to catch them in this video, so that if you're watching it and you're trying to do the same thing, the questions I couldn't get answered are. So as we go through this one's going to be, I think, a much more educational approach to this video than just a documentation with a little, quips and little commentary here and there. I'm going to film everything I do, and that's going to add a lot of time to this process as well. So it's one more reason not to even anticipate getting the motor in on this first go around. So with that being said, as you saw, I have the motor loaded up in the truck. I'm going to take it over to a garage that's a lot more space than the one I have, at higher ceiling. I could do it here, but it's just cramped. Why? I have another place to do it. So we're going to go over there, unload everything, get a nice workstation set up, get some lights set up, and it's going to be hot as balls this weekend, so I'm going to go ahead and set up some fans, and we'll see where it leads. I know how this will end. I know how it will start. The fun's going to be in the middle. Follow me along. Let's see what happens. Okay, here's the story so far. Did this yesterday, day one. The basics of getting the engine bay prepped. Pulled the radiator out, shroud. Was able to get one of these brackets off for the accessories. The other side has the power steering pump on it, and that is a pain in the ass to pull in a GM, so I'm just going to leave that in place and get it off once the motor's out of the bay. Things you need to look out for, obviously the hoses and your transmission cooler lines need to be removed. Do not start the vehicle after you've pulled the transmission lines, even though it will run. If you need to drain it outside of the garage and move it into the garage like I did, I forgot that part, and a nice little flood of transmission fluid came out of those. Amateur move, but I'm an amateur. Nothing really special about this. You do have to hunt and pack a little bit to find the mounting bolts. There's a couple studs and then bolts down below here to get these accessory brackets off. So they're hidden is what I'm saying. Most of them are 13 or 14 mil. You'll need extensions to get inside, and a couple of them are blind when you're taking them out, but it's not that big a deal. So today, this day 2, is going to be getting all the electrical and fuel and everything disconnected from the top of the engine, and then getting the torque converter bolts out and taking the transmission bolts out. And hopefully maybe later this evening, if things are going smoothly, we can pull this motor out and have it out. And so that's the next step. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so I'm done with the first half of day 2. I'm doing this in 2-3 hour increments because it's so hot outside. Do some in the morning, come back around 4 o'clock and do a little bit more. So what I've done now, all of the sensors, wiring, and any other brackets that are connected, the motor to the frame or anything else, have been pulled. It's about 5 or 6 up here on the top end. Then fuel lines have been removed right there. Those are all pretty easy. Went ahead and took the hoses off for the power steering at the gearbox, so I could just leave that bracket, like I said, attached to the motor. What else have we done to get this thing closer? Let me dip underneath. Did some work underneath it, getting it ready. So went ahead and pulled the bolts off the torque converter. Those were 15 mil. Took a little bit of work. Somebody usually has to hold the crank snout and go against you while you're trying to loosen them up. I was able to get one off with a wrench. The other 2 I had to work an impact on and get those off, but it was all right. Then the exhaust. Well,
I can get the exhaust off probably with just using a ratchet or the impact, but I was thinking about it and just why waste the time. I'm not reusing this exhaust, so I'm just going to hacksaw sawzall this exhaust off short of the manifolds up top, so that'll just be quicker. And then it's on to the transmission mounting bolts that mount the transmission to the block. That's what I'm going to try to get done later this evening. And then tomorrow, my brother's going to come over in the morning and we're going to go ahead and yank the motor out. So that's it for the first part of the engine removal process. Going to go ahead and get this posted up. And probably another 2 days of work getting the engine out and well, I can't even say how many days, because I really want to get the firewall on the engine bay nice and clean and painted before I even attempt to snap the new motor in. So we'll do some filming on that and post that up as another part of the video or the series. So go ahead and close this one out, and here in a couple days look for part 3 of the project truck.